Hello, 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 and welcome once again to the Dr. Zeero Xiron Free Magic Secrets Show, where we investigate all forms of magic. We talk about all kinds of things and stuff at this channel, all kinds of occult commentary. We talk about the cool book I wrote called Apex Unhinged. You just need to Google it. We talk about the cool music I made on Suno, which is all posted all over this channel as the Zeero Xiron Orchestra. If you hit the playlist, you will find it all arranged neatly in playlist, as is the name. So, without further ado, I wanted to have a very specific discussion today. So I thought that today we'd have a little talk about smashing illusions and why this is all so important. Not only just mentally to make you stronger, but also to increase your magic. Because you see, when we talk about magic on this channel, we're always talking about being cut above the rest. That's the thing. It hones your senses, hones your mental ability, sharpens your psychology, sharpens your ability to pick people apart like they were just clocks and you're just picking apart the different gears, making them tick. Magic sets you apart. It puts you on a different echelon. You're going to be way over the heads of all the other people. And the natural tendency is to take it as far as it can go and always to grow and evolve. Now, it can become a very lonely place when you're like an eagle soaring above the heads of everybody else because they ultimately misunderstand everything that's coming out your mouth. But that's just something that comes with the territory. And it's something that you have to get used to and make peace with. And as you progress on this journey and you stop fighting it and you realize you're different than your common man and you're on a whole different trajectory, whole different worldview, whole different way of looking at life, the more the illusions that once maybe gripped you are obvious as illusions. Some things, you've known forever and it's just more in your face than ever before that they must be defeated or changed. And let's talk about some crucial ones. So number one, I guess I wanted to talk about the topic of destitute homelessness versus the illusion that comes from safety and being comfortable and being housed to the point where that you don't have to worry about those things going away. There's always going to be someone that's going to swoop you up and let you stay on their couch if things go wrong. You might have family members who would take you in. You might have a brother or sister who'd be like, oh, don't worry. Well, you'll always be taken care of. There's always someone to have a backup plan. So a lot of people, like in the back of their minds, they don't have the panic, the constant dread of always knowing they're going to be thrown to the street. And as you may know, the street has never been in a worse position because soon there will be no food stamps. Soon all the services will be gutted. There's no federal funding anymore for things. That's all its own story, but you should be aware that of course, that's going on. So, you could say during the COVID era when the whole world fell apart, the street had never been more street and the inside never more inside. And the truth is it psychologically altered this country. A lot of, people, the whole experience of COVID world and all the isolation, all the shit we had to go through when you finally get caught up on everything you're doing with all that free time and then you realize, oh shit, the world is falling apart. What do I do next? Drove a lot of people half insane or drove people to places that their minds never thought they would go before. Depending on the person is how you had your experience of the whole matter. But for sure, the street had never become more intense and more apocalyptic and more Mad Maxy than ever before. And the inside was never more isolated, of course, just from germs alone. So, or virus. Sorry, there's a difference between germs and a virus, I guess. So, moving on. What I'm trying to say is that this country, we have not had any moment in our pop culture discourse or in our official discourse of this nation that truly addressed the mental health crisis created from the experience of COVID. And some people, once they got the vaccine in their arm, they were able to return to normal world and everything was pretending as it was before. But then there's people like myself where like the situation lingered on. I'm one of the people who said, until the world comes back fully functional, and I'm just going to stay homeless. And I was homeless through the whole thing. Nearly like, it was compounding years of previous homeless as well. All dovetailing together. So what I'm trying to say is this country has been, every single person that went through this experience, their minds were taken to a place they never thought it would ever go. And it fucks people up. It makes them crack in ways. And we're in the aftermath where there's been no mass discussion or mass healing or mass anything. It's just sort of something that happened, and now we're just running away from it and pretending it didn't happen, and that was the past, and this is the future, and that was then, and this is now, and don't fucking be there, and run away from it, run away from it, run away from it. But we left an entire world behind. Because the way that the world was naturally headed, it wasn't just a speed bump we encountered. It was just going off a cliff. And it was going off a cliff for a very, very, very long time. Now, we got lucky that during it, there were food stamps aplenty. And we got government kickbacks and all kinds of little things just to keep the economy going, or theoretically, for a little bit. But you know, I look at today's situation, no food stamps, no water, no food, no water, barely any toilets, in a world that has become bum-proofed due to COVID. I think it's harder now. I think the street is more street now than it ever was during the COVID era when everything had collapsed, because now we got a fully functional society where the street has totally collapsed. And the people who are indoors, they're not paying attention in the way that they should. Now, I did a whole video about the death of food stamps and what that entails and what that really means and how that will really affect people. And, you know, now I'm going to back this up a little bit and say that, you know, what happened to me, again, I've said on previous episodes, I hit about 35, and then I became nature boy out of nowhere, and I returned to all this witchy stuff and magic and learning everything I could. Everything changed for me. It all came back, and naturally what I wanted to be, and what I really wanted to do was, you know, when you go to some campground and you stay for a weekend, like Friday night, you're getting it all together, you set up your camp, blah, 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 you fall asleep early because you've been running around doing it all day. Then you get one Saturday that's like pure peaceful. And by the time you finally feel settled in, like everything's normal and everything is fine, it's already that night. And then you fall asleep, you wake up, and you immediately have to shut down your camp, throw everything in your car, and fucking take off. And maybe if you're lucky, you get to do this 2 or 3 times a year. Well, I said that's not good enough. I want to do that like permanently, until I absolutely don't want to be doing it anymore. And basically what happened was, first it started out living like a pirate in a car, and then into multiple vehicles. Went mobile first. Basically, we got evicted somewhere, got evicted from where we were staying, and took off with someone, and then we had a nice little life, tootling around a city for multiple years, just living the life in a big old luxurious, spacious thingamajig. And, you know, there's different types of homelessness. There's, you know, when you're homeless, but you got a job and you're living in a vehicle and you have income and you get food stamps too, all that stuff. And You know, you find a new home on every block until like a week later, some cop starts knocking on your window and saying you got to move. And then you drive away 2 blocks later and then you live there. And then you just pull that off for years while doing everything you would do in normal society if you had a fucking house or whatever. And then there's another kind of homeless where you get lucky. You got people watching your back, and then you have a tent. You have all your stuff. And if, you know, you can leave your stuff in your tent because people are watching your shit and no one's going to steal from you. That is an extremely lucky situation. That's a whole different ballpark as well. But then there's homeless where you are the only one and you have to watch your own back and you have to carry everything with you all the time because there's no one to watch your stuff. And then on top of that, you're in a situation where there's no food stamps, there's no food, no water, and you're forced to live on picking cans. But where are the cans coming from that everybody's picking off the ground? They're coming from people who had food stamps to buy shit with, and they're just leaving it on the side of the road. When food stamps are gone for everyone, the people who throw away their cans on the side of the road, well, first, they're not buying the fucking shit because they don't have the money for it in the first place. So that depletes all the cans. And then those people are saving the cans because they're broke and need to take them back themselves. So all the houses, all the fucking homes that put out bags of cans for the lucky homeless person walking around their fucking area, all that shit's going to be gone. And that's going to be the only possible source of income for all sorts of people. And so few cities even have water fountains with free water now. Like, there's nothing. There's barely anything. Like, the city that I'm in now, when you do go homeless, no food, no water, and then there's a handful of toilets all miles spread apart from each other. And most of them are only open half the time, half the year, which means when it gets cold and shitty, there'll be like 3 toilets left for tens of thousands of homeless people on the daily. All of them stink like elephant exhibits at the zoo. All of them are horrible. It makes me want to puke just thinking about it. Honestly, like, I almost started gagging right now. So this is why I'm saying the street has never been more street. It's never been more desperate. It's just like everybody's food stamps are going to start being cut starting basically this month, I believe. If I do get May, I'll know in like a day or so if I've been cut off. But if I get one more month, I think that's all that's coming. But I'm pretty sure it's over. So what I'm getting at with all this talk, first, thank your lucky stars if you don't have to face this. But B, realize that no matter how insulated you are, no matter how well adjusted or how many people you know, eventually you're going to get to a point where age has corrupted your backup plans. Physically, you can't be homeless anymore. Your folks and your family members may have passed on because you're so old. And eventually you're going to get screwed out of a job, and then you're going to be faced with an eviction because you're going to be fucked. There won't be any jobs in the future. All the jobs will be taken by computers, machines, AI, whatever else. It's depleted. We have an unwinnable situation. And you listening to this right now have to understand that you will probably at some point, whether young or old, probably old, society is going to shit you out its ass. And when you turn around and you say, but I did everything right, I paid all my bills on time, I worked, I showed up early to work all the time, and this and this and this, and I did everything right. There's no complaint department. And the people who are young and insulated like you once were are going to trample you and walk right over you. And if you're dying of a heart attack on the street or your back is all blown out and you can't walk, they're not going to fucking call 911 for you. They're going to ignore you and step right over you. Because America is a trampling herd of a public. So what I'm getting at here is that you need to recognize all this and beat them to the punch. You need to be not only prepared for being shit out the butt of society, you have to realize that when you talk about magic, which is the whole point of why we're here, when you smash these illusions, it makes it all stronger. Because the more that you cut out the false nature of existing in society and, you know, all these little hoops that we have to jump through, the more you cut this out of your life, the better. So I was talking about, we call it elemental vampirism, right? There's the, you know, psychic vampires that suck off the energy of people. But elemental vampirism is when you suck the juice out of nature. Now, you know, some people call it tree cycling. Some people call it this or that, or, you know, harnessing the forces of nature. But let's give it that edgy fucking title, elemental vampirism. So it's talking about not, and we're not talking about just the green, you know. You ingest the concrete, the barbed wire, the empty hotels, the forgotten abandoned buildings, the marble floors, the crumbling architecture, the blacktop pothole roads, every single bit of it. So this is I'm going to give you a little homework assignment, you could say. Putting yourself in a position, because you're going to be eventually probably shit out and thrown to the street at some point. And you have to know how to survive and what to do. So, you know, you should actually work for it and make it part of your agenda. And I'm going to tell you to try this. And you're going to say, Dr. Zeero, that sounds insane. Well, you're going to have to go through it anyway. So if you're a person who never slept on the street, never once, maybe you had to sleep in cars here and there. You know, a lot of people have gone through that. They had to sleep in their car for a short period or something, or, you know, maybe a month or something. Like, oh my God, it was horrible. I had to get out of that. Well, try years and years and years and years on the street. You know, try years sitting in a tent. Try years walking around with a fucking travel pack, and you have to fucking carry everything on your back with a fucked up spine to begin with. See how fun it is and all that. But that's what's real. So what you should do is, if you have a weekend off, you know, you get off work on Friday at like 5, have everything packed in a travel pack or a backpack, everything you would need to survive. Lock your front door, and then say, from now until Sunday night, I cannot return to my apartment or house. I have to live off the street. I have to live by my own wits. I have to sleep in the park or find somewhere to go. I have to make it happen. Anything, like if you were able to like talk someone into letting them sleep on their couch or something, but it's a battle of the wits. But you shouldn't even have to do that. You should just be like, I need to survey the area, come at it like a Cub Scout or a Girl Scout or whatever. Survey the area, figure out different strategic places. And it's a battle to see how far you can make it. Now, let me give you a free magic secret. Well, it's not even magic. It's just a very important secret. As a first off, there's a big difference between a home bum and a traveler, you know, and there's a lot of difference between a traveler and a drifter, I would say, because a drifter will go from place to place being a home bum. A home bum never leaves. That's like their territory, you know. They're often really mentally ill or have addictions or extreme alcoholics or something. They can't go further than they are. The point is, if you meet someone that doesn't have a tarp, they have no idea what they're doing and you shouldn't deal with them. So that's the number one thing. Like, I feel like I have to mention it because people are so clueless. There's these things, they're called tarps, right? They're big plastic tarps, you know, like the ones that like you get at the hardware store or like the, you know, department store in the like the sporting goods section. They're like big, thick plastic sheets that, you know, a lot of people just put them on their front lawn and rake leaves onto and then pick them up and dump them, you know, like one of those things. You always want one of those in your backpack because you don't have to set up a tent. It's just instant shelter. The second that it rains, anytime, and then all you have to do is fucking lay that out and sit under it in a heavy rain and you'll be fine. Like, it's the most essential component to any traveler's itinerary. And if someone doesn't have one of those, it means they have no idea what the fuck they're doing, or they're so fucking fucked up with their addictions and problems that they can't even afford one of those or figure it out. So that's number one. So it's the question of disappearing onto the streets for an entire weekend without any money. You have to live by your wits and see how far you can make it. See how far, if you can really do it, because at some point you're going to have to. That's going to be permanent. So that's your homework assignment. And then your next homework assignment is do the same thing next weekend after that. And then do the same thing next weekend after that. And keep doing the same fucking thing over and over and over and over until you become master of the fucking street. And this is, you will recognize like the illusions of society will all crash around you when you realize you have to live by your own wits. It's just you and the streets, you know. It's a way to go. So, you know, smashing illusions. I figure I have more to say. Give me a second, I shall return. Now, I had recently watched a viewing of the 4K remastered Fight Club at the movie theater. And forgive me if I sound a lot like Tyler Durden here, but, you know, it's a silly comedy. A lot of people don't even realize how silly of a comedy it is. It's a black comedy. But, you know, Tyler says stuff that makes sense and is true as well. And I'm very glad that character existed to put certain ideas in people's heads. Not necessarily, you know, Project Mayhem turning into what it did. But, you know, you are not your khakis. You are not your clothing. And this is another major thing to smash in smashing illusions. First, smash the illusion of, you know, the need to represent yourself to the outside world wearing any kind of specific clothing. See, the way that, I'm not telling anybody how to dress. I'm not saying don't necessarily do it. Just be very, very aware and acute. You know, you can read an entire room of people more often or not by the shoes that they're wearing, by the clothes that they have on, by what they're projecting. Because it shouldn't be much of a surprise that people are projecting their own personality or what they want people to know of their personality through their clothing attire. And there are different levels of this. Now, myself, I am the kind of person where every single item of clothing I have, for the most part, is just what holds up in weather. You know, I'm not trying to, I don't dress like I'm some kind of wizard guy with a, you know, silk bandana and a bunch of jewelry around my neck and a bunch of rings and this and this and this. You know, I don't, you'd never be able to pick me out of a crowd. I wear baggy clothes a little bit, so no one really notices me. I wear colors that blend in, you know, especially at night. You know, the ninja would usually wear navy blue or gray because that's what blended into the shadows more than anything. You couldn't see it. And I do have a lot of black and navy blue and such things. You know, you'll never catch me without hiking shoes that can, you know, last and, like, you know, walk up muddy places and all kinds of terrain. You know, you quickly see how people think about the outside world by the shoes that they're wearing. It's true. Look at the shoes they're wearing. would that hold up in nature for 1 second, or is it just for fashion? So I'm just trying to say, I'm not saying fashion is wrong. I'm not saying anything is right or wrong. But I'm saying understand that you can see people through their fashion. I mean, there's people who obviously what they're wearing is a costume because they want to, I don't want to say trick people, but basically as you trick people into a certain idea about yourself. Then there's people like me who wear clothing that holds up to the elements and is sturdy, and that's what I'm after, and I don't care what anyone thinks. And there's people who don't even necessarily realize they're doing it. The more you look at pigeons on the ground, you know how they're congregating all together in the streets? They weren't always like that. We did that to them. We turned them into carrier pigeons and brainwashed them to be like that. And then we got over the need of having carrier pigeons, and now they're all just left like that. And when I see humanity, I see the same sort of thing. A bunch of people walking around, blah, 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 like a mass of pigeons. Shopping for clothes, for shit they don't need, for all that kind of crap. So it's like the nature of breaking illusions, you really have to everything you own that you don't need, get rid of. You should have it maybe like say you're a super witchy witch. Have your whole altar stuff, all that fits in like a travel suitcase that you can wheel around if you got to. Have all the most important magic books you own in one tiny little backpack so they're ready to go at any given moment. Have, your travel pack that you got to carry on your back totally full to the fucking point. And then that's all you need. Those 3 items. And then ultimately, you might have a laptop or something that you got to lug around too. Now, you don't want to go homeless with all that shit, obviously. You might end up having to do that at some point. But ultimately, you want to have everything tight like that so that, if a situation you're living in bottoms out, you can just move on within a day. Like all you need, everything fits in one Uber ride, man. That's like the only way to live because, possessions only slow you down. And, smashing illusions while I'm here and I'm just randomly talking about stuff at the end of this episode. Cut out the video games, dude. Cut out the video games. Turn that shit off. Get that out of your life. All that TV, I'm serious thing. There's film, and film is a great art. And there's bullshit movies that are just movies and for entertainment, and I get it. But film is a true art. Film is special. It's a whole different level. And most television is just brain rot. So at least if if you're going to watch TV or whatever, have it be some deluxe, Like Breaking Bad is like a movie. Breaking Bad is like an epic Scorsese movie or something. Like it's something between a Scorsese and a Tarantino movie, right? And it's so well done. It's so well acted that, how can you look away? That's just an example. Most quote-unquote premier TV shows like that, they usually run out of steam. They don't really hold up so well. But, there's high art and there's brain rot. And the importance is to get brain rot out of your sphere of influence completely. See, it's like all these little diversions of brain rot. Like all this stuff I've been talking about. You say, how does it relate to magic? How does it not? Every single factor influences everything. And we're talking about uncluttering the mind. So these are all just a bunch of basic things that I wanted to bring up. It's probably stuff you thought of before, but I really wanted to put it in perspective. Because not to be a Debbie Downer about the situation, but the way things are looking in this country is we're all fried. And at least for the handful of people that regularly pay attention to my rantings, I would like you to make your way through the mess. So I guess see what happens here. Have a good day. Thanks for stopping by the Dr. Zeero Xiron Free Magic Secret Show. And then as always, here's a hot rockin' outro just for you. So let's keep it bleak with a little bit of black metal. Ow!